Hey, so welcome to this little mini course. This is really where I break down how to make a rock, fake rock, and how to make a fake rock project. Basically break it down. I go over it very specifically with illustrations, and as I basically draw it out and sketch the various steps that I take to actually start building a project. So check it out. This is session 1, so we're going to go ahead and begin the process. But you got to figure out, how to make rocks in a way that's natural looking, and that's what we're going to focus on now as we begin session 1 of how to make a fake rock. So what are some things to keep in mind? This is from my book Making Rocks. You want to make sure you don't make everything like symmetrical, unless you're trying to do that, obviously, because it's sort of a style of design you're looking for. You want to make sure you have asymmetry and the zigzag kind of thing going on. A waterfall that's just straight coming down, and I have to force myself to do this because I just it looks goofy, and so I want to make the stones themselves irregular in shape. Now that one's bigger and smaller at the beginning of the waterfall, a little bit smaller, a little bigger. But these are the two examples that you can see when you have something that's symmetrical and you have something that's a little more asymmetrical. This is going to look more natural. We want to avoid 90-degree turns in our rock design. Obviously, a circle is a circle. That looks man-made, or at least it's some kind of a circle is something that if you're creating a faux rock that's a circle, that's obviously going to be kind of interesting and kind of strange. But you want to avoid the 90-degree angles in the box in the geometry: triangles, boxes, squares, circles. You want your fake rocks to have, irregular shapes and irregular scale and size, right? Again, this is from my book Making Rocks, and this is a printout from one of the pages there that we're talking about. So you want to have asymmetry, the zigzag, scales varied, small rocks, medium, big rocks, anchor rocks, what I like to call them, and your angles, you want them to be natural. You don't want to have geometry, shapes. That just looks so strange. A lot of times the engineers will make engineering, and it's very boxy because their calculations can be done more easily that way. So we don't want to do that. That's unless you're trying again to make something that's asymmetrical or symmetrical and boxy. So I don't like the boxy too much. So here's an example again. The rule of thirds is something that you want to consider. The rule of thirds is where you break things up into thirds. So there's 1, 2, 3 thirds. This is fourths. If you look at the cracks, if this is a fake rock you're putting cracks in it, you want to avoid the 90-degree angles. It's 2 equal in spacing, 2 horizontal and vertical. So the lines, you want to keep them offset. So this doesn't look as natural. This looks less natural, but I made the perimeter like a natural looking kind of a shape, because that's, what we're trying to do. If you made a box, it'd be looking like a box. So you want to get your shapes broken up into thirds. So small areas, this is kind of on that third. So there's 2 thirds here and a third here. That's going to be more natural, less natural. Now, if you get the texture right and the gross cracks right, the color right, and this outer shape is natural, you can get away with this and it doesn't, look too goofy and too weird. But it's nice to just remember the rule of thirds: symmetrical and asymmetrical. All right. So I was Googling fake rocks, and if you look at what is out there, it's very interesting. There's a lot of things out there with fake rocks. You've got, this is kind of interesting, and so like what looks real. Well, you can kind of tell the jobs that look pretty natural. These are looking pretty good. That's looking pretty good. Looks pretty natural. This is starting to look a little pyramidal, and it's just sort of a blob, And as you go through the images and see what other people have done, you can really start to see which is starting to look more like nature. That's interesting. It's a little boxy, right? This one over here is interesting. But look at that. That's a perfect That's a perfect square right there. And that's a perfect square. They look more like they're manufactured or created stones than a box right underneath it. So interesting. Color's a little bit monotone, but could that have been improved on? Yeah, I think so. So we want to really try to get to where they look like nature. That's what we're aiming for. See, that's got some interesting stratified kind of lines and cracks coming across. They're at an angle, and that's kind of cool. That's coming down at an angle, and the waterfall is just not naturally dropping off. It goes below the water, which I find interesting. But it does look like a wall, and so I'm not sure if there's something there underneath a retaining wall that needed to be kept there or what. As we go through the things you see out there, you can start to find what really nails it and what doesn't. We want to make our stuff look like God made it. That's the boxy look. Very common. I see a lot of that out there. And the color's pretty good. You have some light colors and warm browns, which is awesome. But it looks kind of like an open garage. You've got you just got this big flat surface. It's a stratified rock style, and you do have a big anchor boulder, but it's sort of an odd creation. It looks like this was just sort of laid on top, and that's kind of strange. These little features that are just sort of a pile, they're just little temporary things, or they're not, they're like buy off the shelf. But as you look at stuff, you can see what works and what doesn't. So we want to try and make sure we're making things that look like God made them. That's the goal. Here's one of the ones that I made, and it's part of the. If I can get my computer to load fast, because everybody's online now. This is from a blog, and this is a water feature I made. And you can see we've got some nice dynamics going on. We have a nice big anchor boulder over here, and that's a big one in the corner. And then you have different colors, which is nice, large and small. Here in San Diego, a lot of the rocks are, hey Patrick and Rocky, what's happening? We've got lots of rocks out here in East County, San Diego, Southern California. And it's different, different people's regions have different types of natural rock. So here's another feature I did, and we're just starting up, and it shows the rebar structures. Again, trying to make the shapes look a little bit more natural. The angle, you want to kick it over. I'm critical of even my stuff. It's not, some parts of it I like, parts I don't. This was actually a pond portion that was going to be built, or that was built, and then it wells up and goes over right here and dumps in the pool. So it has a perimeter of rocks around here and over there, and the waterfall begins up here and bounces down through smaller stones as well. And this is another feature you can see. Again, we're trying to get the shapes varied. This is after the shotcrete, and we have the waterfall right here. It's actually a grotto, so you can swim into this portion of it, this overhang. And a grotto is there's no standard really term for it. That's just sort of an overhang area that you can kind of huddle underneath, and had a slide on the side. So you got our stairs going up. This is a small feature. You can see this is a 6-foot fence around the outside of the property, and we pull back the palm trees while we're working and stuff. And so this was added to a pool. I think it was actually a new build, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And so this is the shotcrete phase. Again, you put in your rough cracks on the shotcrete phase, and you can then flush those out and add other details later, but you want to try and get your gross texture. Notice the small rocks, bigger rocks, medium, varied. We have variety here. Okay, that's really important. You really want to have that variety. The shapes are a little pretty modulated. They're kind of roundy, but I want to try and have planes on those corners and areas of the rocks themselves. So there are different places places that kind of look like they're peeling away or whatever. So got a little tiny satellite here, and again, that's just to flush out the area. A lot of times you'll have a pile of rocks. You'll have a water feature with a pile of rocks, and it's just not, it's not where it's what it's not good. Here's the feature that we had done. This is one, the same one, and we've got more of the feature done. This is from a blog that talks about how to make a waterfall, and this shows the final texture right there, which is pretty cool. And you can see that the pool's empty and we're getting ready to plaster it and stuff. But this thing's ready to be finished up. And then this is what we ended up with, and it looks pretty darn cool. Have some planters in it. Actually, I have 2 planters, one there, or 3, one there, and there. And I suggest to people that they just simply put the potted plants and slide them down into these planter areas, and then see how they handle that environment. You know, can they survive? Can they handle the hot rock that's going to start going off and cooking them over time? So you can see a little bit of the textures. Trying to make more planes on here. There could probably be some increase in texture a little bit more, but like over here is good. I like that area. This probably could add a couple more cracks in it and stuff, but you get the idea. Stairs go up to get around there, and that gives you the access to the slide. And so pretty cool project there. So if you look at the fake rocks when you Google them, take some time and then look at what works. You can kind of tell what's happening out there. And so we'll go back. So as we go down, we see the various styles of fake rock. You see this project here, nice fractured lines, big planes, and it bounces down. So that, there's parts of it that are really kind of nice. This one's kind of cool. Has a lot more terraces, but there's a lot of left and right horizontal rocks, stratification carved in there. It looks kind of, I don't know, it's almost there. It almost nails it. So when you just take the time to look at nature, here's what we see when we Google fake rock. That's just sort of interesting. Every job has things that are good and things that aren't as good, in my mind anyway. Things that look good and are natural and really nail it. So how to make a rock. These are examples that you can see of fake rock when you just Google it. And you just look online and see what's there.